Welcome to the NASCAR live chat with Hamm, the Engine Man. If you don't know me, 25-year NASCAR engine builder. My name is David Hamm. I'm owner of Hammscapes Landscaping Equipment and Repair Company. I was a 7-year jackman in NASCAR from 95 till 2001 for Kyle Petty, Sterling Marlin, and a bunch of different drivers throughout the years in the Busch Series and the Cup Series. And now I'm radio personality here at WAME 92.9 and 550, which is where I am right now. And we're actually moving into a new studio. The owner of this station is right now, matter of fact, he is downtown working on the clock tower building with our engineer, Mike, getting everything wired in. So that's pretty exciting. Ready to move down there. And it's going to be a really cool deal. Very nice stage for the bands that we have that come in and all that kind of stuff. So thanks to Mike Bears joined in with us and Scott Trevison, the beer man down in Florida. And I wrote down a few notes from talking to you today, Scott, that I'm going to mention some of those things in here in a little bit. Rachel Rodman, hello, everybody. And I'm sure Terry Quinn's probably joined in too. And my wife, Tracy, should be on here. There you go. All right. So we got a few things to go over today. I mean, of course, NASCAR isn't racing right now, obviously, but they do have the iRacing. And I did watch it. I didn't watch it till this evening, but I actually just finished watching it right on time. That's why I was about 2 minutes behind, but I did get it. So we're going to go over some of the NASCAR Cup, Xfinity, Truck Series news, some of the happenings that are kind of going on right now behind the scenes, obviously, because they're not at the tracks. Go over some announcements from NASCAR, and a couple of those might surprise you, and some may not. Do a little bit of Q&A, and I'm also going to do a bio of Sterling Marlin. So I wish Scott was here to chime in, but he can go on here and comment. And actually, if he wants to call and tell us some stories or whatever, that'd be fine too. I didn't never get the phones working here. I got to talk with the engineer and get that figured out in our new studio, but I could always use my cell phone. Otherwise, we'll just roll right in with my notes and things that I got. But don't forget to hit that subscribe, hit the bell notification if you like this video. And if you want to keep up to date on every time we go live here on a NASCAR live chat with Hamm, I'm going to be having guests throughout the 2020 season as soon as we get rolling back through with the NASCAR stuff. But we'll talk a little bit about how the coronavirus right now is affecting different people. I know right here in Iredell County, the sheriff put out a statement a couple of hours ago, basically saying that, we are on a lockdown as of 5:00 this evening, but that doesn't mean that the sheriff's office is going to be pulling people over and all these kinds of things. I do have a letter because I'm media that, I can be working, and I also have my landscaping business. So those are the kinds of things. I think they're just trying to keep people from jumping in, going into big groups. You're not supposed to be more than 10 people, I believe it is. And they're trying to keep people from getting together and getting in these large groups. So it's all good. Maybe we can get this virus behind us and get back to some NASCAR racing, hopefully really soon. So Rachel's asking me, what did you think about it, David? Do you like the iRacing? I think it's actually pretty cool. And I did actually used to race. It wasn't called iRacing back then. It was, it's probably, it's been 10 years ago. I had my own steering wheel, and I sat down there at the computer desk, and I had it clamped to the computer desk. I had my gas and my brake pedal. And I'm thinking there might have been a clutch or may not. I don't remember. I still have that stuff, actually. It's up in my attic. So I actually thought about here recently, maybe giving it another shot. I'm definitely not going to be able to race with these guys because they're, they got advanced equipment for one thing. It's just like anything. You can spend that money and have much better equipment than I have. My steering wheel, the first time I ever did this, I bought that steering wheel and the brake pedal, gas pedal, or throttle, as you might want to call it. And it was, that's 20 years ago, I would say. It's that old. So I am definitely outdated. So, all right, good day. Hello, Rachel and River Rat up there in Virginia. Talked to River Rat last week. Thanks so much for calling in. That was a great conversation. And now it's on video for everybody to go back and watch the last episode. I'll put that in right here or right here. I always get confused. It's one of these here. I'll put that card up there so you can go back and watch the interview of River Rat. In case you didn't know, he was the one that climbed the fence in 2014 at Richmond and I think he got banned for life. Imagine that. So, but it's a pretty funny story. This Rachel says this virus just spread so fast. That's what it seems like. It's spreading really ridiculously fast. I mean, New York, they're talking about they need help because it's done spread throughout that city so much, and it looks like a ghost city. It's just crazy watching all that. Mike Bear says it's fun. It's fun to have I have a subscription. Okay. Yeah. I wonder how many people can race in that. I mean, is it 40 something? I thought I saw that there was a whole lot more people that qualify for that than is actually able to race. So Rachel says, do the cup drivers often use iRacing or virtual racing to practice? I do believe that's what they do. And Terry says, my son says a 14-year-old boy was playing the NASCAR drivers. Yes. Well, if you look at it like this, it increases your, I mean, everything. Like if you're racing, you're using your hands, your feet coordination, your, I mean, you know, it's just kind of like you're fine tuning your brain, your reaction times and all that kind of stuff. So I figured it couldn't hurt the NASCAR drivers to drive them. And from what I hear Jeff Gordon talk about it, you know, and as he's commentating, it does sound like it's a lot like the real things, you know, it's a lot of the drivers are saying. And I apologize. I was losing a little bit of my voice earlier because I've been doing the radio thing for the past, I did 6 hours today. So that's a lot of talking if you think about it. So I guess if I was a NASCAR commentator, I can kind of see how they feel. It's a river rat. Yes, buddy. Thank you. Rachel says, oh, cool. That must have been fun for the 14-year-old to take on the pros. What's up, Paul Rodriguez down in Florida? All right. So here's some of the NASCAR news going on right now. Don't forget to hit like on our NASCAR Country Facebook page also, and check out my podcast, Hamm the Engine Man. And my website is updated. It's DHammiam.com. Just plain simply DHammiam.com. Mike Bear says, yep, Hamlin's setup is $40,000, but Timmy Hills is only a couple hundred. Guess it all depends on preference. And Timmy Hill won the race. So, I mean, he must have pretty decent stuff. But he doesn't have the, I think he's just got the chair, and he doesn't have the whole setup. You know, some of those drivers probably have the ones that actually move with the banking and all that kind of stuff. I've seen those simulators like that before. So NASCAR has ordered pay cuts across the entire company during the racing stoppage. NASCAR officers or officials, and we'll see a 25% reduction in salary, 20% of everyone else. Excuse me. So NASCAR, I guess that's officials. It says officers. I don't know if that's what my note says, is a 25% reduction and 20% of everyone else. So budget expenses have been frozen. Employees urged to use vacation days, announced to employees via email from Steve Phelps. And I have noticed that this is the NASCAR Corporation. I've noticed a lot of my friends that work in NASCAR racing, they're some of them are able to keep working. Some of the shops are closed, as like Penske. And so they're not able to keep working. And some people are using their vacations early. They may have like 3 weeks for the year, and they're taking their vacations early, hoping that they're going to get back to work within those 3 weeks. But I do know that like Roush Yates Engines, they have a machine shop over there that Doug Yates has set up that he is actually working on. When I was working in there some too, helping them out, they were working on some government projects. So they actually have, you know, they can get to work, they can stay at work because they're making some products for the government, which gives them a safe pass. So we did not, Tracy says we did have one in the man cave at Bristol. That is correct. And we got to do that a couple of times, and Tracy did it. I was like, hey, you just go ahead and do it. So she sat down and raced in their simulator, and it was one of those that actually moves like this, you know, with the banking and stuff. It was really cool. And next week is the Bristol race, I believe it is. So that should be a fun one to watch. Me and Scott Beerman were talking about that earlier. Scott says, hey, Hamlin totally missed his setup yesterday. And that's one of the things I remember doing when I was doing it. You can set up your car, and it's very cool. I mean, you can learn a lot about the cars too by learning how to set up your car, because, you know, you're pushing or you're loose, all that kind of stuff. You adjust your wedge, tires, stagger tire, the air in your tires, that kind of stuff. All right. So in North Carolina, Roy Cooper, our governor, Roy Cooper, announced on Friday a stay-at-home order for the entire state. that began Monday at 5 p.m. because of the COVID-19. It will be in effect for 30 days. This affects all NASCAR teams as the order bans gatherings of 10 or more, and they must stay 6 feet apart from each other. The order states non-essential businesses must cease operation and business. So I know some of the guys that I talked to, they were talking about how weird it is being at work and you can't get, within that 10 feet of people and all that kind of stuff. So I just can't imagine, I retired from NASCAR a year ago now, and I think I would just be going stir crazy if I had to be in there and just keep myself looking busy. I would probably be over at the machine shop making parts, which pretty much kept me busy, but I don't know. I feel for those guys because I know normally the day goes by so slow when you don't have anything to work on. And a lot of the guys are just having to stay busy. And, if they got to go another month just looking busy, I don't know how that's going to work out. So, yes, I would definitely go stir crazy. I'd be like a river rat. I'd have to go do some yak. He calls it yak. I'd have to go, excuse me. I'd have to go do some kayaking out there. Not good. I got this little bit. Well, okay, I'll tell you what it is. My truck is completely green, covered with the pollen. So I don't know if anybody else is having any pollen issues down there. And I mowed a lot of yards this week with my Hamskates business. So, Beer Man, have you got the pollen down there in Florida? Pretty sure River Rat probably has it up there, and I don't know about in Oklahoma. But yes, River Rat says I'm about to lost my mind. Oh man! So breaking news: the debut, and this is something me and Beer Man were talking about earlier. The debut of NASCAR's next gen car will be postponed to a later date in 2021. The COVID-19 has pushed testing back. NASCAR expected to make an announcement later this week on the situation. And when can you expect to debut the next gen car? So we will yet to find out. And Scott says yes, the trees have been dumping that pollen. So, yeah, some of the other things I mentioned talking to Beer Man earlier, and he said something about, there's this possibility, something to think about now. What if we raced in Wilkesboro on a Wednesday night? I think that would be super cool because it's right here locally for the teams to go to, and they could be right back to the shop on Thursday working or whatever. So we'll see what happens there. It's going to take a lot of money to get that track ready if that happens. But I think that would be a very cool idea. I know NASCAR is wanting to get back to the Charlotte race in time for the Charlotte race. So we'll see if that happens. So we have this whole month here in North Carolina. I guess there's another month that President Trump announced that there's another 30 days. So that would be the end of April. And so we'll see if it happens to get back into letting people get out in May in large crowds. Hopefully everything will be calmed down by then and this will be gone. I sure hope so. And the other thing we were talking about was, do you think that they will shorten the races? Because the iRacing now, the races are hour and a half long. So, people seem to be really into it and really excited watching it, and they don't get bored as easy, I guess you could say. Yes, Rachel says yes. Wilkesboro. River Rat says I vote yes. Yeah, wouldn't that be so cool? Last time I was there was in '96, the very last race we run there when I was jackman for Kyle Petty. And I remember I took my dad and my uncle there, and I actually posted a picture on my Facebook that my uncle had taken where Earnhardt's passing by, and I'm out there kicking lug nuts, picking them up, and then Earnhardt drives by. So that was a pretty cool picture that I have there. And then we left that track, and I got out on some back road, and I ended up, oh my gosh, it didn't take me 45 minutes to get home. I was on the back roads, and I kept following this sign that said the interstate this way. And this is before we had the old GPS on our phones and that kind of stuff. So I rode for probably 2 hours before I found the interstate. Okay, so Terry says, I read it. They were talking about having the Martinsville race minus the fans. Okay, well, that's something that could happen because, if they're going to go racing again, they're going to have to get back at it. The only problem is if they limit the amount of teams, like if the teams can't travel they would drive. I mean, how many? I don't know. I don't know if there's a limit. You can get it in your 15 passenger van and take off to the track. I don't know if you can do that or if everybody has to drive separate and all that kind of stuff. River Rat says, I've got tickets for Martinsville. Yeah. And Rachel, I wonder what that would feel like for the teams to have no fans there. I'll tell you what, that would be very strange feeling because it's almost kind of like, well, it is like they're racing for the fans. I mean, that's basically it. What else are you racing for? Of course, you would still be on TV and racing for the fans on TV. So, all right. So NASCAR iRacing and Sports Fox partner to televise complete eNASCAR iRacing Pro Invitational Series schedule, March 24, 2020. And that was the less than a week after a successful inaugural eNASCAR iRacing Pro Invitational Series race. So NASCAR iRacing and Fox Sports announced Tuesday that subsequent races will be aired nationally on Fox Broadcast Network, where available and subject to change. Our FS1 and Fox Sports app. How cool is that? They're finding something to do, and they're keeping a racing alive, because really what it comes down to is watching the races. They're very interesting because it's just that competition that you're getting to watch. So Rachel says, do the teams feel motivated by the fans? It must seem empty to be racing without fans watching. Yes, that is very true. It definitely is. It's definitely, I mean, you kind of go with the cheer of the crowds, a lot of times. I mean, but you're also, if the cars are out there racing on the track, you can kind of tend to drown out the crowds. So that's really what I had to do. So Scott says, I think they come to Charlotte Race Week mid-May. So we will see that. Hopefully that'll work out. I mean, I'm hoping this stuff gets on out of here and settles down and doesn't turn into like it has in California and New York and New Jersey and those places. What's up, Darla Robinson up in Indiana? She says, hi, everyone. The Indianapolis 500 has been postponed to, I believe it's the first time since 1911 that it won't happen in May. So, that's the same weekend. Well, it was the same weekend as the Charlotte race. So I'm not really sure if that's the case. Does that mean, Charlotte may follow suit or maybe not? That remains to be seen. The Homestead race had 900,000 viewers, making it the highest watched esports event in American television history. So with this order, NASCAR probably won't be able to do testing on the next gen car, which will set them back. Yes, I actually have that coming up and further in my notes. We'll get to that. I won't read the rest of this. The Boyer was supposed to test after Atlanta, as they won't rubber buildup on the track. If they were to run any tests during this off time, it would be on a green surface. So where other sports can pick up where they left off, it really hurts NASCAR. Not sure how many phases they have, but it says in an article they are currently on phase 3 of testing. So I'm guessing 7 maybe for the Gen 7. Who knows? That's a total guess. So in the shops, the guys have to build the current cars and make repairs on the damaged ones, tear down and rebuild. They get back, those poor guys are going to have to put in some long hours. I'm telling you what, that's what I was telling one of my friends at the engine shop the other day. I was like, man, whenever this deal goes down, y'all are going to be putting in some long hours to try to get all this stuff turned back around and get it ready. I mean, especially the car guy. I mean, it's going to be tough for everybody. But once they get rolling again, because the reason I say that is because they're going to have to cram in all this racing in such a short time. So that means that engines have to come back. They have to be gone through and sent back to the tracks, to the cars. And they've limited how many times you can run the cars now and the engines. So it's not like they can be at the shop now building all these extra cars and these extra engines to go back out, because they're not allowed to. Terry says, Indy racing is getting in iRacing too. I'm not much of an Indy fan, just saying. Yeah, that's the same here. I've never been much of an IndyCar racing fan myself. Paul says, be like a tire test. Yes. And Rachel, we should send the bills to China to pay in incorporated lost wages, reduce our national debt as compensation. Yeah. So, Yates will need to need me back, David. She says, please for Ford. We need the wins. Oh man, I'll tell you what though, I'm actually enjoying myself because I'm getting to do a lot of things that I didn't really have time to do before, even though it seems like I never have enough time already. But I'm working on that, figuring out my schedule and my timing. Just like Tuesday and Wednesdays, I'm working my shop. And then, Monday's my creative day, and I try to work in some of my creative stuff, like doing this right here and doing my videos on YouTube, some of those other days. So Scott says, I was pulling for John Hunter Nemechek driving the number 38 Ford yesterday. It was really exciting for me. It was over quick, 125 laps. Got to drink your cold beer fast. That's right. Them mountains were blue. I'm guarantee it. So Let's see. Not sure. Oh, Kevin Harvick announced on March the 23rd that his Happy Hours show aired on SiriusXM. NASCAR would return. Harvick had put radio and TV broadcasting on hold to focus more time on NASCAR and his family, but he decided to start doing this show again, even though there's no racing during this downtime. I bet the drivers are going stir crazy. You know, you see a lot of them doing lives on Facebook and YouTube and stuff right now. So there is plenty still to talk about, both involving the sport and what is going on in the daily life away from the track. He hopes to take his mind off of things and maybe make you laugh a little bit more. All right, the show will air on Wednesdays from 1 to 3 on SiriusXM NASCAR radio channel. My mom was calling me. All right, so for Jordan Anderson's Truck Series team, during this downtime, there's not much one can do, so they were cleaning the hauler. Something that is usually low on the list of things to do during the normal season, and discovered at the bottom board of a seat cushion written in a Sharpie was the Hooters Racing number 11. How cool is that to find a little bit of history? It'd have been better if it was a Hooters Racing number 1, but that's another story. All right, so someone pointed out that the Featherlight did this with its haulers to show what part went to what hauler, as the parts were common. That parts were made in a common area. That's right. Okay, hold on one second. Hello, Mother.
Hello.
I'm doing my NASCAR live chat right now.
How are you? Okay, I'll talk to you later.
All right. Love you. Bye. All right. Bless her heart. I thought maybe she'd be tuned in. She has the notifications turned on and all that stuff. So what's up, Jenna Trevison down in Florida? I'll tell you what, we were set to come down there. We were so excited. And now it looks like they're closing some of the, they're not really closing the border to Florida, but they're kind of skimming out people that can come through there. And I'm sure if they see my North Carolina tags, they're going to be like, no, you need to turn around and go back home. So Terry says, we're really going to have to get behind our teams and show our locals love and support for them. Crew guys, shop guys, engine builders, everybody. That's right. And Janice says, hello, everyone. Riverette says fatigue could become a problem once they start back up. Yeah, I do believe that is. But you know what? Back in the day, this is the way it used to work with us in NASCAR. We would wait for the engines to come back. All right, we would build these engines. They would go down to Florida. They would test. They'd come back. We'd have to rebuild them, and then we'd send them back down there just in time for the clash, and then the qualifying races on Thursday, and then sometimes we'd send, if it was such a good engine, they'd want to send that qualifying engine back and then rebuild it and send it back for the race. So there was times where I actually stayed in hotels closer to the race shop because I knew I was going to be putting in so many hours that it was just not even worth driving. So Tracy says New York and Louisiana is the places that they will be watching more closely, I read. Yes. All right. So we'll see how that works out. So Anders, back to the Tony Stewart received a text from Indianapolis Motor Speedway president after the track announced schedule changes for the new marathon week of racing in Indiana, that being the Indianapolis 500, NASCAR, and USAC, all in the same week. But as we just heard, the Indy race has been postponed, so I don't guess that really applies. But however, he runs dirt cars on a weekly basis. In fact, 90 plus yearly are in his schedule. I thought I did see something about Tony was going to run some of those. So as for Tony's response, he said a thumbs up and said, you get me the good rides and maybe I'll consider it. So maybe that's what the deal was. He was talking about racing, but who knows? All right. So congratulations to Timmy Hill on winning the iRacing event Sunday for Texas. And I was listening to that race, as I said earlier, right before I started this, and it said 674 wins. Is that right for Timmy Hill in the iRacing series? That's a lot of races to be sitting down in front of the computer racing. So yeah, there would be no way I'd be able to compete with that. So he used a bump and run to take the lead from William Byron in an overtime restart on lap 121. Ryan Preece finished second, then Garrett Smithley, Landon Castle, and Alex Bowman. William Byron led 80 of the 130 lap event. And yeah, I noticed that Ryan Preece got real close to winning that race because he was right there side by side, sort of, and then didn't quite make it happen there. All right, so the cold beer, warm beer for that race would be Timmy Hill has run for a small, low budget teams in all his NASCAR career, but so far he's been very successful in the iRacing series, finishing third at Homestead and winning at Texas. All right, Garrett Smithley, along with Timmy Hill, are the only two drivers to have top fives in the first two iRacing events. So, Paul Rodriguez, tell me if you watched that race. Have you tried watching one yet? Because I know you mentioned that you didn't really care for that so much. So I'm just curious if you gave it a shot. You know, since there's no other racing on right now except for reruns, tell me if you watched it and if you actually enjoyed it. Kurt Busch finished 10th at Texas, so he gets the cold beer, and he had 25 spots higher than where he finished at Homestead last week, so that constitutes a cold beer instead of finishing 35th. Kyle Larson came in ninth place, 24 positions higher than he did at Homestead, and Jimmy Johnson finished 19th. And the day before he finished, or the race before, he finished 16th in an IndyCar. Oh, I guess there was one the day before in an IndyCar racing event at Virtual Watkins Glen. The races I liked, well, you know, you can play PlayStation 3, 4, whatever, and there's a lot of the racing games you can play on those. I enjoyed mostly probably Bristol was one of my funnest tracks. I didn't like the road courses so much. I did like racing at Talladega and places where you can do some drafting. That was a lot of fun too. All right, so the warm beers would be for William Byron. He led 80 of 130 laps and was bumped by Timmy Hill on lap 21. He finished 7th. You know what? That's not really his fault, though. Maybe he deserves a cold beer. Ty Majeski finished 9th at Homestead, but after a pit road penalty, he finished 30th on Sunday. So pit road penalty, he must have been speeding too fast or whatever. So Terry says he already plans to come back to race Xfinity, Stewart, that is. All right. So his River Rat says hot beer for Denny Hamlin. Spending too much on his virtual racing rig. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a lot of money. I guess if you got money to burn, I wonder if that would be considered a tax write-off for them. I'm sure they got some ways around that. So let's see. Sterling Marlin. All right. So what I'm going to do next is, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, I'm going to do a little bio on Sterling Marlin. And, you know, as you know, Sterling Marlin was someone I admired a lot. I was the jack man for him for several years. Scott says, Timmy, he'll put the bump and run on Willie B. So my experience with Sterling Marlin, I was his jack man from 98 and 99 and part of 2000 as the jack man they got to replace me after I had my shoulder surgery. And I was sort of planning to retire, but I ended up not retiring. You know, I guess I just decided I was going to be done, and then I wasn't done. So I ended up jacking. I ended up sticking around there and jacking some more for Sterling in the Cup Series, or once again in the Cup Series. And then I also went on, kept jacking for the In the Bush Series for Nemechek and Blaze Alexander and Arca and all that kind of stuff. All right. So Sterling was definitely a character. Then Scott was around him a lot more because he would go to do all these stuff, giving out the beer and putting up the banners and staying the whole week at the racetracks and things like that. But I'm going to roll into some Sterling Marlin bio. Sterling Burton Marlin was born June 30th, 1957, and he is 62 years old. He lives in Columbia, Tennessee. He is a semi-retired stock car racer. He currently drives for Sterling Marlin Racing, number 14 in the JEGS CRA All Stars Tour. This says 114, but I thought he was number 14. Anyway, so tell me what track that is, Scott and Jana. I've got somewhere up there, I know, in Tennessee, but I've never been there, and I know y'all have been several times, and I've talked about going and wanting to go out there, just haven't ended up doing it yet. So he formerly raced for NASCAR Cup Series, a total of 33 years. He won the Daytona 500 back-to-back in 94 and 95. So he was one of the 4 drivers to do so. I believe he was in the Morgan McClure car, the Ford Kodak, and Rut Pittman was the engine builder for that. That car always had a distinct, definitely a different sound to it. Okay, so Scott says Nashville. Now, I've been to Nashville several times, and I was thinking it was I guess it was the old Nashville Speedway where he's racing. So, all right, so he actually won, I believe it was last year. So it was there it is. It is 114 car. Okay, at the Nashville Fairground Speedway. Okay. Thank you, Jenna and Scott. So Sterling is the son of the late Clifton Burton, now also known as Cuckoo Marlin, who was also a character himself. Very cool guy that used to come to the racetrack quite a bit. And so did Stedman, who is Sterling's son. And also, he also raced in NASCAR, of course, back in the day. His son Stedman raced in the Nationwide, now Xfinity Series. So Sterling's grandson, Sterling, it's spelled like Sterling without the G, splits the schedule with Sterling in the number 114 in the super late model. So in 1983, he was a Winston Cup Rookie of the Year in 1985 or 95 and 96 Tennessee Professional Athlete of the Year. Okay, this must mean 1985 and 86 because 95 and 96 he was already racing in NASCAR. Okay, so he was a Tennessee Professional Athlete of the Year. In 2009, he became an inductee of the Fairgrounds Speedway Hall of Fame. All right. His first NASCAR race was in 1976, Music City, USA, 420 in Nashville. His last race was 2009, Turns Fast Relief 500 in Martinsville. And if y'all notice, I keep twiddling my thumb like this. It's because I'm getting a little bit of that carpal tunnel in my hand. And messing with this mouse with my left hand when I'm doing the radio doesn't seem to help things any. So I have to kind of keep it stretched out. So Sterling had 10 wins, 216 top 10s, and 11 poles in the Cup Series. In the Xfinity Series, he has 2 wins, 22 top 10s, and 1 pole. He played high school basketball and football, earning the captain status in his senior year while playing positions of quarterback and linebacker. He began his collection of Civil War artifacts shortly after high school. And I know that Sterling, he knew, well, when I told him that I was a collector of Civil War artifacts myself, he actually brought, all right, Siri, my Siri thought I was talking to her. He actually brought me, he's like, hey, I got some bullets for you. I got some bullets. I thought he was telling me he was going to bring me some books. So I was like, okay, Civil War books. Okay, very cool. So the next race, and I'm trying to remember where that was, Rockingham, maybe Darlington. He brought me these Civil War bullets. So he was, of course, the way his accent is, he sounded like he was saying books, but it was bullets. And he also brought me a little Civil War soldier, and I should bring that in next time for kind of like a show and tell. But he gave that to me. I guess he had quite enough things in his collection that he thought it would be nice to give me that stuff. So I thought that was really cool. Jana says grandson Sterling, which is the original spelling of Sterling Marlin's name. Okay, so you know what? I thought I remembered it being Sterling back in the day, but anyway, that's the way it goes. Okay, so 1980, he had 2 top 10s, one for H.B. Cunningham finishing 9th, and for D.K. Ulrich finishing 7th. In 1980 to 83, Sterling was 3-time track champion at Nashville Speedway, USA. I actually had I've got a postcard from, I think it has Hisco transmissions on the side of the postcard. And if I'm not mistaken, I showed that to him and he's like, that was the first sponsor I'd ever had. And I don't remember if I got him to sign that or not. So in 1976, though, Sterling Marlin made his NASCAR debut filling in for his injured father. He started 30th and finished 29th due to an oil pump failure. Yeah, Rachel says that's kind of him to help you with your Civil War collection. Yes, very, very, very nice of him. He was always a great guy. So in 1983, he raced for Roger Hamby. He finished 19th in the point standings and won Rookie of the Year, beating Trevor Boyce, Ronnie Hopkins, Ken Reagan, and Bobby Hillin Jr. Between 1984 and 83, Sterling also raced for Sadler Brothers Racing, Jimmy Means, Dickie Barr, Hoss Ellington, Billy Hagan, Junior Johnson, and Stavola Brothers. A lot of legendary teams right there. And I worked in the Stavola Brothers building, so I actually went upstairs and saw some of the old things they had collected upstairs in that building. Really cool stuff, part of history. In 1994, he went to race for Morgan McClure Racing, where he, after making his 279th start, Sterling won his first win in the Daytona 500 and repeated again in 1995. He is the only driver to have his first 2 wins at Daytona. He left MMR at the end of the 97 season after finishing 25th in the point standings. And of course, that's when he came to Sabco. And we were all excited about that because we knew especially going into the Daytona 500. So 1998, Sterling went to race for Sabco Racing, driving the number 40 Coors Light Silver Bullet or Coors Silver Bullet. He opened the season by winning the Gatorade Twin 125, which Scott has that picture hanging up. It's got me in it and it's got him in it, right behind me, hanging up in his man cave. But 3 weeks later, he failed to qualify for the Prime Star 500 at Atlanta. And it was the first race he had missed since 1986. Sterling finished in the top 10 6 times and finished 13th in the points. All right, so in 99, he won his first pole since 1995, but finished 16th in the points. In 2000, Sterling lost his teammate, Kenny Irwin Jr., which we all remember that. I'll never forget that day. During practice at New Hampshire International Speedway, that year he had 7 top 10s, finished 19th in the points. I was actually working back in the shop, and I was Kenny Irwin's engine builder in his qualifier engine. And I remember Tony Glover bringing him in to introduce him to me and saying, "This is your engine builder." So it was very cool to meet Kenny Irwin. And then, that later on in that year is whenever he got killed, and I never got that engine back. But, there's a lot of things that happened back in the day. We ended up having a meeting with Felix Sabatis, and it was basically just a meeting to figure out who the next driver was going to be, the replacement driver. And then we pretty much, before that, they just told us all to go home. So, all right. And then we had our meeting, later on in that week or on the next week. I'm sorry. So in 2001, Sterling won the Gatorade 125. 3 days later, on the final lap of the Daytona 500, Sterling made contact with Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s bumper in turn 4. In the following days, he received hate mail and death threats as angry fans felt he was responsible for Dale's fatal wreck. But he was eventually publicly defended by 2 of the Earnhardt drivers, Dale Jr. and Michael Waltrip, for sure. And I was, at Charlotte for the one of the races there. I went and I was down in the pits, and I went down there and saw Sterling and Lee McCall standing at Sterling's car. And it was for one of the open races to get for the 600 qualifying. Anyway, he ended up winning one of those. He ended up winning that one. I ended up going up to turn 4 and sitting in the stands. But I believe that was the last time I talked to him in person. All right. So he won the Dodge. He won Dodge their first win in its return to NASCAR by winning at Michigan, and also won at Charlotte, and he tied his career best of 3rd that season. And no, he was not responsible for Dale's wreck. Janet Trevisan says yes. Right. River Rat says, "Wow, I'd like to have that engine." You know what? I've had this several times. We've had drivers that were killed. The other one was Blaze Alexander, and the other one was Kenny Irwin, and there was Adam Petty. And those 3, of course, we weren't doing engines for Adam Petty, but we were doing them we never saw those cars or those engines. I know that Kyle, I believe he had that car crushed into a cube and buried in his front yard or something like that. And then the other cars, who knows where they ended up, but we never saw any of that stuff back. I probably still have the notes from when I built the engine for Kenny. So, all right. So in 2002, Sterling had a strong car in the Daytona 500, and towards the end was battling Jeff Gordon when they made contact, sending Gordon spinning and triggering a crash that brought out the red flag. Concerned about his damaged right front fender. Now, this was funny. I think everybody remembers this. Sterling jumped out and started to pull the fender away from the tire. As working on the car under the red flag was prohibited, he was sent to the tail end of the field for the restart. Yes, I remember seeing that on TV. That was a classic Sterling Marlin. That was so funny. So the following week, he finished 2nd at Rockingham and took the points lead, which he held for 24 weeks. The following week, he had won at Las Vegas and 9th in Atlanta. Then he won at Darlington, which was his final NASCAR win. With a series of strong finishes, Sterling won 91 races ahead. In the standings, he was 91 points ahead in the standings. However, he had a wreck that caused him to finish the last the race last, and his points had dwindled to 9. The following week, he lost first place to Mark Martin. The following week, Sterling had a hard crash that cracked his vertebrae in his neck, and he was forced to miss the rest of the season. So Jamie McMurray was chosen to substitute for Sterling, and in his second start for the team, he won the UAW GM Quality 500, and Sterling called Jamie in the victory lane to congratulate him. I remember that as well. That year, I was working over at Bill Davis Racing. I had moved on because Chip Ganassi came in 2001. Well, I left in the beginning of 2001 season to go work for Carl Wagner, and I worked for him for 1 year over in the old Stavola Brothers building, and then moved over to Bill Davis Racing and for the 2002 and 2003 season before the August of that year, moving over to Robert Yates Racing. So in 2006, Sterling raced for MB2 Motorsports, but was let go in 2007. In 2009, Sterling participated and won a charity race in Bristol, driving a car painted like the Kodak car and wearing one of his Coors Light uniforms. In 2012, Sterling publicly announced that he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's. So he retired from NASCAR. He still races active in the Pro Late Model division at Nashville, as we mentioned earlier. So very cool. Sterling is a great guy. I'd like to drive out there and see him someday. Hopefully we'll go with Scott and Janet sometime. All right. So if you got any questions, throw them at me right now. I'm not sure any comments, any of that kind of stuff. I mean, I hope everybody's doing good through all this coronavirus thing going on. We're doing our best here at the radio station to keep people informed on the latest happenings and things going on. I know tonight there was actually a ban, or not a ban, it's a kind of a lockdown thing going on in North Carolina. It started at 5 p.m. tonight. And since I have a pass because I'm with the radio station. So Jana says, Sterling is hoping to set the fairgrounds record in winning this year. He needs 2 more wins to surpass Joe Buford, who currently holds the record with 66 race wins. Very cool. So maybe we can get out there and see him win and beat that record. That would be pretty awesome right there. So, but thanks everybody for watching. Hit that subscribe, hit that like button if you like, and check out my podcast, Hamm the Engine Man. Also give us a like on our NASCAR Facebook page, NASCAR Country on Facebook, and check out my website, DHammiam.com. That kind of takes you to all my different social media links. Like on Twitter, you can message me there, or you can comment, tweet me, all that kind of stuff. I don't really do too much on Facebook. I like doing the Twitter. I like Instagrams where I post different pictures and things. So thanks everybody for tuning in though. And we will see y'all next Monday. So we'll get some more information. I'm sure there'll be a few things happening this week in NASCAR, and hopefully we'll survive through all this mess that's going on with the coronavirus and all that. And Scott and Jenny, y'all be safe down there. Florida, we're probably not going to get to come down and see y'all. And thanks for that, Scott. Great Sterling profile. Thank you for all the fans joining tonight. Rachel says, fans, friends. Thanks to Rachel and Terry for all that y'all do to help me get all this stuff together. Because as you know, I have so much going on Mondays. It's like, that's my by the end of Monday night, my brain is fried. I actually have to stay here for probably another 30 minutes or so and pick out some songs for our local mix at 6. You can check that out on our Facebook page on WAME Radio and WAMEradio.com. But I got to get that typed up and printed out for the rest of the week. And then I'm taking tomorrow and Wednesday off. Actually, I'll be working in my shop. So yes, stay home or on your boat, Scott says. But all right, so everybody have a good night, and thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next time.